Usually when a company invests, you know, millions of dollars to upgrade its tech and roll out some massive new enterprise software, there's this fundamental expectation of just extreme efficiency.
Well, absolutely.
Right. I mean, the promise is that you spend the money and suddenly everything is sleek, it's streamlined, and completely friction-free.
Yeah, that's the dream anyway.
Exactly. But, okay, let's unpack this because the deep dive we are doing today into a thought leadership paper by SNSD, it's titled HSE Digital Maturity, it just flips that entire expectation completely on its head.
It really does. It's a stark reality check.
It is. And our mission today is for you, the listener, to discover how matter of organizations can actually take their health, safety, and environment practices, what we'll just call HSE, and move them from this chaotic, frustrating mess of fragmented tools into a streamlined, risk-reducing powerhouse. Specifically for the frontline workers who actually need it most.
Right, because that gap between the boardroom expectation of efficiency and the actual, reality on the ground, that is where the true corporate crisis lies right now.
Yeah, crisis is the right word for it.
I mean, we are looking at a corporate world where a company might have this highly sophisticated, fully automated drilling operation, right? Or like remote sensors monitoring a pipeline from literally thousands of miles away.
Oh, sure. State-of-the-art stuff.
Exactly. But then when it comes to the systems keeping their actual human workers safe from severe harm, they are practically operating in the dark ages.
Wow.
Or, ironically, they are drowning in an ocean of disjointed software that actually makes their jobs harder.
Speaking of drowning in software, I want to highlight this jaw-dropping detail from the source material. It just perfectly illustrates how out of control this software hoarding can get.
Oh, the Verdantix research.
Yes. So they looked at these massive enterprises, organizations pulling in over $5 billion in revenue. And there was this one Fortune 500 company in particular that had somehow accumulated nearly 200 different HSE applications.
It's staggering.
200 separate tools for safety and environment.
Yeah, think about the overhead on that.
Right. I mean, they actually had to launch this massive, desperate software rationalization project simply because they completely lost track of what they even owned.
Well, and having 200 applications is a symptom of a profound misunderstanding of what digital transformation actually means,
How so?
Because for years, the driving question in these corporate boardrooms has been basically a vanity metric. They ask, how digitally mature are we?
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So executives look at the sheer volume of licenses they purchase, and they mistake that for progress.
Like buying gym equipment and assuming you're getting fitter.
Exactly. SNSD argues that companies have to abandon that mindset entirely. They need to start asking a much sharper and honestly a more difficult question.
Which is?
Does our HSE technology actually reduce risk, simplify the daily work, and actively prevent the next harmful event? Because if the tech doesn't do those three specific things, it is essentially useless overhead.
Which brings us to a really good point. You don't just accidentally trip and fall into a shopping cart full of 200 enterprise software licenses.
No, definitely not.
There has to be a systemic trap that these companies with massive budgets and, dedicated IT departments are falling into. So how does a well-meaning safety initiative morph into a software hoard?
Well, it happens when an organization operates without a unified, risk-centric strategy. The text identifies this critical trap, and they call it being tool-led rather than risk-led.
Tool-led. Okay, break that down for us.
So a company will see a shiny new app hit the market. Maybe it has a very persuasive salesperson, or there's an internal champion who just loves the interface.
Oh, we all know that guy.
Right. So they buy it and deploy it simply because it represents the flavor of the month. They never actually take the time to map that specific software back to a material physical risk on their factory floor or a critical control they need to verify.
So they're essentially buying a solution and then wandering around the plant looking for a problem to solve with it.
Exactly. That is exactly it. And because they keep doing this over and over, year after year, they end up building a completely siloed landscape. They buy one piece of software over here to log injuries, another system over there to track environmental audits, a completely separate tool for issuing hazardous work permits, and yet another portal for safety training.
And I'm guessing none of these systems talk to each other.
Absolutely. None of them share a common language. The permit system has literally no idea the audit system exists.
That's a nightmare.
It is. They don't share data definitions. So a hazard recorded in one tool is just completely invisible to the other. But the most damaging consequence of this siloed approach is how it impacts the frontline worker.
The people actually doing the dangerous work.
Right. The people physically turning the wrenches, the ones standing closest to the high voltage lines or the chemical vats, they are somehow the last people to benefit from the technology.
Because the multi-million-dollar software is sitting in a corporate office miles away,
All right.
being used by safety specialists just to generate compliance reports for the board.
Yeah, precisely. Meanwhile, the technician out in the rain is still trying to fill out a soggy paper form or, sending an email to a supervisor just hoping it gets logged properly somewhere.
Man, that's rough.
Consider the daily reality of a frontline supervisor in one of these siloed environments. The source emphasizes this example heavily. Just imagine this person's morning routine.
Okay, paint the picture.
To simply start a shift safely, they have to sit at a desk and log into the core operations system just to see what machinery is running.
Okay, step one.
Then they open a completely different web browser tab to check the permit to work system. Then they pull out their phone and log into a mobile app to review safety inspections from the night before.
Good grief.
And then maybe they check a fourth system just to see if anyone reported a near-miss incident near their work area.
It's like outfitting a so-called smart home, where you have to use 15 different apps just to get out the door in the morning.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Like one app to turn on the bathroom light, a totally different app to adjust the thermostat, a third app to unlock the garage, and a fourth to arm the security system. You aren't saving any time at all.
No, you're losing time.
In fact, you, the human being, have been forced to become the integration layer. You are the one manually connecting the dots between all these disconnected tools in your own brain.
Yes.
The paper actually has a brilliant quote for this exact scenario. It says, "That is not digital transformation, it is digital administration."
And that digital administration is incredibly dangerous. I mean, think about it. Every minute a supervisor spends staring at a screen trying to reconcile 4 different passwords is a minute they are not on the floor observing actual human behavior.
Or spotting physical hazards.
Exactly. Forcing a human to act as the integration layer drastically increases the probability that a critical warning sign is just going to fall through the cracks between those systems.
Okay, so if the pain of this digital administration is so obvious to the people on the floor, the natural question is, why do the corporate executives keep funding it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Why do they continue to buy standalone tools that clearly make the supervisor's life miserable?
Well, the root of that disconnect lies in how large corporations are fundamentally wired to measure value. What's fascinating here is how traditional procurement works.
Go on.
When a business procures enterprise software, let's say a new supply chain logistics platform, they measure success using traditional dollar-linked return on investment, ROI.
Sure, standard business practice.
Right. They calculate that if they spend X millions on the software, they will save Y millions in operational efficiency or increased widget production. The problem is, HSE requires a completely different lens.
Because safety isn't about producing more widgets.
Exactly. The paper asks a deeply thought-provoking rhetorical question about this. It asks, how do you demonstrate the value of the incident and lives that you saved yesterday?
Wow. Yeah, you can't put a dollar amount on an explosion that didn't happen.
You really can't.
If a supervisor notices a pressure valve warning sign early because of a good digital dashboard and they shut down the line, the company just experiences a normal, quiet Tuesday. You can't track the absence of a catastrophe on a standard ROI spreadsheet.
Precisely why standard ROI models totally fail safety technology. The value has to be measured by entirely different metrics: risk reduction, control assurance, and frontline effectiveness.
Makes sense.
Now, there are generic frameworks out there to help companies measure tech adoption. For example, the Smart Industry Readiness Index, or SARI.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, SARI is a fantastic tool for figuring out your overall enterprise direction. It functions like an overarching compass for modernizing a factory. But HSE demands a much more specific, focused lens.
It needs something tailored.
Yes, it requires a system that constantly asks if the technology is actively helping workers identify hazards earlier and if it's verifying that critical life-saving controls are actually in place.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, because I imagine a lot of corporate managers hit a wall right about here.
Oh, for sure.
Put yourself in the shoes of a middle manager at a massive industrial firm. I completely buy the argument that traditional dollar ROI doesn't work for safety. But eventually, I still have to walk into the CFO's office or present to the board of directors and ask for a $10 million budget to fix our 200-app nightmare.
Good luck with that, right?
Right. I can't just slide a piece of paper across the desk that says, please give me the money so we don't blow up.
Yeah.
Pointing to basic regulatory compliance just isn't a strong enough business case for a total architecture overhaul.
It's not. And relying on fear or mere compliance rarely unlocks massive capital budgets. That manager needs a structured, mathematically sound framework that ties their digital requests directly to demonstrable risk reduction.
So what's the alternative?
Well, SNSD developed a 5-step HSE digital maturity enhancement framework to solve this exact communication gap between safety teams and finance teams.
Oh, nice.
It replaces the emotional plea with a logical, strategic business case.
Now, we have to move away from treating these frameworks like a generic checklist and really understand the narrative they create for a company.
Right.
Because jumping straight to buying software clearly doesn't work. How does this framework actually map a path out of the chaos?
It works by demanding that you start with the physical reality, not the digital one.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, you don't begin by looking at software catalogs. You begin by walking the facility and establishing a baseline of your major accident hazards and process safety exposures.
Okay, grounding it in reality.
Exactly. Once you know what physical dangers could actually cause a catastrophe, you then map your current technology against those risks to find the gaps.
Right.
You ask, where is a frontline worker struggling with usability? Where is a critical control totally unmonitored by your current systems?
So you find the real-world danger first, and then you brutally assess where your tech is failing to protect against it.
Yes. From there, you build a prioritized portfolio. You evaluate those gaps based on how urgently they need to be fixed, how feasible the solution is, and, crucially, how much effort it will take to get workers to adopt it.
So adoption is baked into the evaluation.
It has to be. Only after you have prioritized the real risks do you even begin to talk about an implementation strategy, like deciding if you need an off-the-shelf solution or a custom build and how to structure your data.
Got it.
Ultimately, this builds into a multi-year roadmap where you roll out solutions in sequences, tracking the measurable reduction in risk every step of the way.
It sounds like charting an evolutionary timeline for the company. The source details these different stages of evolution an organization passes through, and the contrast is just startling.
Oh, it's night and day.
You have companies trapped at the very bottom in the pre-digital stage. We are talking about literal dusty binders on shelves, manual data entry, disconnected logbooks, and relying entirely on the gut instinct of your most senior worker to spot a hazard.
Yeah, and moving out of that dusty binder era usually brings a company into the digitally reactive stage. Honestly, this is where a lot of companies currently sit.
What does that look like?
Well, they have rolled out some standalone mobile apps and a few corporate dashboards, but because it's all still siloed, they are essentially driving by looking in the rearview mirror.
Analyzing incidents only after they've happened.
Right. It's totally reactive.
The real turning point seems to be the third stage.
Yeah.
Digitally proactive. This is where the systems finally start talking to each other, right?
Yes, exactly. You start to see automated data harvesting and near real-time monitoring of safety barriers. It is no longer just a digital filing cabinet, it's an active monitoring system.
And achieving that proactive baseline is what unlocks the more advanced stages, right? Like becoming digitally integrated.
Yeah, this is where the jargon starts to sound a bit like science fiction, but it's very real. At this stage, a company might use federated data lakes.
Federated data lakes. That's fancy.
It basically just means keeping all your safety, operations, and HR data in their original homes, but using a central search layer to query all of it instantly. You also start seeing 3D digital twins at this stage.
Literally a virtual replica of the physical plant.
Exactly.
So a worker could put on a VR headset or look at a tablet and see the exact layout of the machinery, complete with live sensor data, before they ever walk onto the hazardous floor.
It's incredible tech, and the ultimate pinnacle of this evolution is the digitally strategic organization.
The Holy Grail.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
These are the companies operating centralized command control centers. They have autonomous CCTV cameras using computer vision to spot, say, someone walking without a hard hat or a subtle leak in a pipe.
Wow.
And that triggers predictive analytics and self-optimizing workflows. The technology is no longer just reporting data. It is providing real-time decision support to prevent the incident before human eyes even notice the hazard.
I mean, if I am an executive sitting in a boardroom and I see a presentation featuring autonomous AI cameras and 3D digital twins, my immediate reaction is going to be, I want that tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. They all want the command center.
But trying to leapfrog from a reactive spreadsheet culture directly into AI-driven autonomous monitoring sounds completely catastrophic.
It is a recipe for disaster.
The text calls this impulse innovation theater, putting on a high-tech show for investors without fundamentally making the work any safer.
Innovation theater is a massive drain on capital and, honestly, frontline trust. It happens when companies try to skip the foundational steps. The framework heavily dictates pacing your roadmap in distinct, non-negotiable phases.
Okay, walk us through the pacing.
Phase 1 is simply about getting the basics right. Before you buy an AI camera, you must digitize your business-critical compliance and standardize your workflows. You have to build a reliable data foundation where people actually trust the information being logged.
It's the equivalent of making sure your house has solid plumbing and electrical wiring before you try to install a fancy multi-zone smart shower system. You need the infrastructure first.
That's a great analogy. Once those foundational workflows are reliable, you move to phase 2, making safety live.
Making it live, meaning
This introduces the early hazard detection, the mobile verification out on the floor, and active intervention capabilities. And only when the front line is fully comfortable and trusting of that live environment do you transition into phase 3.
which is the sci-fi stuff.
Right. That is where you become fit for the future, rolling out the AI-enabled analytics and the deeply integrated smart asset ecosystems.
Let's talk about the underlying mechanics of making this happen, because earlier we discussed the nightmare of 200 completely disconnected applications. To achieve a phase 3 ecosystem where AI is analyzing data across the whole company, you can't have those silos.
No, they have to be dismantled entirely.
The paper stresses a major technical fix here, demanding a shift away from isolated procurement to something called a modular and API-first architecture.
Yes. The instinct when trying to fix 200 disconnected apps is often to go out and buy one massive, monolithic mega platform that claims it can do everything. You know, HR, operations, safety, and supply chain all in one box.
I've seen companies do that. It rarely goes well.
No, those monolithic systems usually end up being incredibly rigid, clunky, and universally hated by the people who have to use them.
Totally.
A modular API-first approach is completely different. It means establishing a common HSE data model at the center of your business.
And just to clarify for everyone listening, an API, an application programming interface, is basically a universal translator. It's a set of rules that allows two completely different pieces of software to talk to each other and share information securely.
Exactly. So with an API-first approach, your central data model acts as the core brain. And that brain can then be fed by multiple highly specialized capture channels.
Like what?
You might have a great mobile app for the field workers, smart CCTV cameras on the loading dock, IoT vibration sensors on the heavy machinery, and digital permitting forms. Because they all connect via APIs, they all feed their unique intelligence into the exact same central foundation.
Okay, so rather than pouring a single rigid block of concrete for your tech stack, where you literally have to tear the whole building down if you want to make a change, you are building your safety system out of Lego bricks.
I love the Lego analogy.
You have a shared base plate, which is that central data model, but because everything is API first, you can just snap in a brand new, highly advanced sensor tomorrow or swap out an old mobile app for a better one without disrupting the entire house. The Lego bricks all fit together effortlessly because they use the same standard connectors.
And that modularity is the secret to longevity in enterprise technology. The data moves seamlessly across the process safety domain, the physical asset domain, the workforce domain, and the HSE domain.
That's all connected.
Right. So when an IoT sensor detects high vibration in a pump, it automatically checks the HR system to see who is certified to fix it. It generates a safe work permit and sends it directly to that specific mechanic's mobile device. That fluid movement of data is what actually makes a facility smart.
That is amazing. But as mathematically elegant and technically brilliant as a Lego brick architecture and a 5-step framework are, we have to address the elephant in the room.
The human element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Technology is ultimately only as good as the human beings tasked with using it. You can build the most beautiful API-first data lake in the world, But if the mechanic on the floor refuses to log into it, the entire system collapses.
It absolutely does.
So how does an organization align human behavior with this massive technological leap?
Well, the human element forces a massive shift in focus from software architecture to organizational culture and leadership. IT teams cannot build a safety culture in a vacuum.
Right.
And the source material provides a fascinating diagnostic snapshot of corporate leaders that just perfectly illustrates the psychological gap we're dealing with.
Oh, I love this part of the research. When they surveyed these top executives and asked them to rate the potential of HSE technology to make their processes easier and safer, the leaders gave it a massive 8.8 out of 10.
Huge enthusiasm.
Yeah. They also rated the importance of this digital transformation highly, scoring it a 4.6 out of 5 against other corporate initiatives. So the top brass clearly believes in the promise. They know it has huge potential.
But the reality check is devastating.
Yeah, it is.
When those exact same leaders were asked to rate their current HSE tech maturity like their actual capability today, they scored themselves a dismal 3.0 out of 5.
Ouch. The gap between their ambition and their daily reality is massive.
It really is. The paper argues that closing that specific gap requires deliberate, customized engagement across 3 distinct levels of the company. You cannot simply send a company-wide memo mandating a new app and expect success.
It requires a coordinated effort from the boardroom all the way down to the catwalks.
Exactly. Starting with top management. Their responsibility is strategic alignment and heavy sponsorship.
What does that look like in practice?
They need to stop viewing this as a simple IT software upgrade and start treating it as a fundamental operational performance agenda. Their job is to remove systemic organizational barriers and ensure the budget matches the ambition.
So they are the ones clearing the debris off the path and signing the checks, but they aren't the ones designing the daily routines. That falls to middle management.
And middle management is where the battle is often won or lost. Their focus has to be on ownership and enablement. They have to take the lofty vision from the executives and translate it into practical, daily implementation.
That's a tough job.
It is. It is up to the middle managers to standardize the workflows so that these digital tools become a natural, embedded step in the work, rather than an annoying parallel reporting burden tacked on at the end of a shift.
Because if the middle managers fail, you end up creating that exact frustrated frontline supervisor we talked about earlier, the one staring at 15 different login screens.
Exactly, which leads directly to the frontline level. For the workers actually turning the wrenches, the entire conversation must revolve around usability and adoption.
Make it easy for them.
Yes. Frontline workers are the primary source of operational truth. They generate the data. The tools they use must feature incredibly intuitive interfaces that help them execute their tasks faster and safer without adding administrative bloat.
You bring up a great point about who generates the data, and it highlights a classic silo mentality that companies have to break.
Oh, for sure.
The text features a highly revealing anecdote about a senior maintenance leader sitting in on an HSE strategy meeting. He actually raised his hand and asked, why should the maintenance function participate in what looks like an HSE and digitalization initiative?
It is the ultimate expression of the silo. Safety is the safety department's problem. I just fix the machines.
Right. But the response to him was profound in its simplicity. Maintenance, operations, and engineering are the teams that constantly create, use, and depend on safety-critical information.
Exactly.
If the maintenance department isn't deeply engaged in the design of the digital roadmap, you might solve some reporting headaches for the corporate safety officers, but you will completely miss the actual point of execution where physical risk is being controlled.
It forces a company-wide reckoning. Executives who want to know if their digital transformation is actually working need to stop looking at vendor brochures and start asking themselves incredibly pointed questions about the human experience on their factory floors.
So what does this all mean for leadership?
Well, pulling right from SNSD insights, a CEO needs to ask, what exactly should a supervisor be able to see at the beginning of a shift without having to log into multiple platforms?
That's a great question.
And more importantly, where are our frontline teams still being forced to re-enter the exact same piece of information into multiple different tools?
And if they don't know the answers?
If leadership cannot answer those questions, they do not have a safety transformation plan. They merely have a bloated technology backlog. It proves that successfully transforming safety technology is, at its core, a human transformation project.
It is the ultimate alignment project. You are intentionally weaving together physical risk, daily process, human psychology, raw data, and technical architecture into one cohesive, unbreakable sequence.
Beautifully said.
This has been a deeply eye-opening journey. For you listening, think about the immense distance we've covered today. We started in a nightmare scenario. A sophisticated corporation drowning in 200 disconnected apps, relying on exhausted supervisors to act as the human integration layer between broken systems.
A dark place to be.
But we've also mapped a highly logical path out of that chaos. By adopting a risk-led framework that tastes implementation and embracing a modular, API-first architecture, an organization can finally build an ecosystem where the data actively works for the frontline worker, rather than the frontline working to feed the data.
That's the paradigm shift.
Right. The ultimate measure of your company's digital maturity isn't the size of your software budget. It is the measurable volume of risk you have systematically removed from your people's daily lives.
I'd like to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on the trajectory we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing how to select the right technology, sequence its rollout, and convince the frontline to actually engage with it. But what if the ultimate test of a truly mature, digitally strategic HSE ecosystem isn't how much the frontline interacts with the software, but how seamlessly that technology becomes entirely invisible to them?
Invisible.
Yes. Imagine a not-so-distant future where the safety ecosystem is so deeply integrated, modular, and predictive that it anticipates a severe hazard and automatically adjusts the physical controls before a human worker ever has to pull out a mobile phone, remember a password, or even look at a screen.
Moving from an overwhelming 200 applications down to 0 visible applications. The entire system just breathes in the background, keeping you safe without asking for your administrative labor.
Exactly.
That is a brilliant and provocative place to leave it. As you step back into your own daily routines, take a hard look at the software and workflows mandated in your own workplace through this new lens. Are those tools actively reducing your risk, or are they just digital administration wrapped in a modern interface? Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.